fucking villains. They're on to us. They know I figured out their fucking plot.
Oh, shit.
They're on to us. Quickly, I must tell you their secrets.
What secrets?
Exactly. Welcome, friends and listeners. Welcome to the Massman Show. Today, with me, I have Jolts Wolf, aka Necro, and E Shapeless.
Hi!
Hello, I am Jolts, aka Necro, longtime player and hoodwinked friend, who gets pulled into these rants all the time.
Hoodwinked friend.
He says all the time because this is technically the 4th or 5th recording we've done of this, and like I said, the villains are on to us, and they're trying to stop this fucking video from coming up, I swear.
Essentially, if I sound composed right now, I'm not. It's just the fact that I've repeated this exact same line 4 different times, and I have it down to memory.
It's so sad. It's really sad. This was a really good topic in the beginning. Now it's just like, oh, Timmy, we're talking about villains again. Yeah, but no one's seen it yet. I don't fucking care. Oh God.
Yes.
So we're hoping this time around that Demiara has his equipment together.
I'm sorry.
Because, technology hates everyone.
Of course, when I'm working alone, it works just fine, and then I get you people in here. Okay.
The worst part is that his equipment fails.
Yes,
on
Debbie, it's all our fault.
times, and then, not only does it fail on him, I was recording another episode with Shapeless, and her equipment fails as well.
Well, it wasn't an equipment fail itself. It was just I tried to open up a raw file and it said fuck you, and I'm not doing this shit, and it corrupted my audio file.
So-
I'm like, no.
So like I said, the villains are on to us. They know that we're trying to get these damn videos out. So we're gonna have to fight back now.
Yes.
So what we wanted to talk about was what the hell's a good villain, what the hell's a bad villain, and what are some good stories from our villainhood. But this ain't gonna be a long video like I had planned initially.
Villainhood, is that like the childhood of villains?
No. I was thinking, villains, maybe they hung out in the hood, they had their own place, instead of seeing shoelaces up on power, instead of seeing, instead of seeing good stuff like shoes up on top of power lines, all you get is ex-superhero thing going.
It'll feel like that like bar scene out of Scooby-Doo, the real life version. And they go in dressed up in disco Scooby-Doo in his fucking afro. But everybody there is a villain, and they're like, we're gonna get skinned if we get discovered.
Yeah, basically. So, what we wanted to discuss super quick was, what's a good villain? And so, the gist is, what's a good villain?
A good villain can be described in many different subjects. A good villain can be someone who challenges the party, someone who is a force to be reckoned with, and definitely you should know it. Or a good villain can also vary to be perhaps the last person that you would ever think is a villain, someone who perhaps doesn't even have the power to fight you, but fight you through deception. Or perhaps just if you want to be blatant, good villains, despite the stereotype behind it, can simply be someone with political immunity, straight up and simple. Even though it is a cliche, still, when you're in that scenario, it still puts a lot of pressure. No matter what though, a good villain always has some sort of edge or element that makes the players challenge, think, and work in order to fight against a force that would otherwise be impossible for the average man.
See, like we said, we've recorded this a few times. He has this shit down. He's learned his lesson, apparently.
Yes.
God, there's supposed to be a whole lot more to that, but, simply put, he is right. Someone who makes a player pissed off.
Yes.
I can tell you the number of times I've pissed Jolts off as my villain. 10-mon Flint. God. I didn't plan for him to be that big of a bad guy, but man, everyone hated his ass.
Yes.
Oh, did they hate his ass. Right, Jolts?
Yep, Ted Monflint was probably one of the most annoying characters to deal with, and it wasn't even just because of the fact that he was powerful, but he presented a major component that all villains have. some ability to manipulate or change a situation before them in order to make it favorable for them rather than the player, giving the player something to struggle against. He always had this way of manipulating a situation around which gave him the advantage, making it seem almost hopeless for us, yet there was always one or two decisions. This is a DMing style that would actually correlate to a villain. To be able to use someone like Tenmon Flint, for instance, to counteract work or progress of a player in order to open, but at the same time creating a flaw to open up yet another scenario. This creates tension and stress within the party, and therefore also leads to a good villain. As the tension builds, so does the desire to end it. Though, that also leads to another effect, a villain outstaying their welcome. This tension will constantly build up, but if you don't give a player a way of releasing this tension, it'll eventually start to lose its original impact. A villain should never outstay their welcome, but at the same time, you should never underplay them either. After all, what's a good supervillain if they go down the first session?
Sure enough. I'm sorry, Shapeless. Why did I bring you here?
I'm just thinking, it's like, well, they could go down the very first session, but that leaves an opening to bring them back as a bigger, stronger enemy to piss people off. It's like, we killed you, we got rid of you for like from jump.
Yeah.
And then he kicks the party's ass, and it's like, well, shit.
Yeah, all of a sudden you think, you killed him, you defeated him, he's done, we have all the advantage here. No, there's either another villain who's either just like him and higher up, or this guy has a lot more tricks now and has gotten stronger.
Yes.
So that said, I need to stop pacing here, because, yeah, but, not bad. So simply put, good villains are memorable villains, and they don't always have to be bad guys. You know, they don't gotta be Joker, they don't gotta be Scarecrow, they don't gotta be big bad motherfuckers who kill and maim and just go for power struggles and control. More or less, they always have to be the rival. In a superhero setting, fucking hero, you know, you got your Iron Man, you go for a guy who can counteract Iron Man's machines. You got a guy who can teleport and disappear. Like a guy who always knows where that motherfucker is and can teleport just as fast.
Or has some sort of machine that can tell where he is. Doesn't even have to be like an innate feature.
Yeah. That's actually how I did it at one point. I had a guy who did just that. Couldn't be seen, had a sniper rifle, and could teleport.
That's a deadly combination.
Yeah. But there was another guy who had big power gauntlets, had a helmet that always told him where he was, and he had a belt that could just poof, he could teleport right where he was. And man, did that player get pissed off at me for that one. Like, he's still after me! I know.
And that actually makes me think of another point, which is another major thing to avoid when you're making a good villain is outright outpowering the party. There can be certain scenarios where we play on the edge system, where which as a GM I call edge system, where the villain has a certain edge that helps them pull a certain situation to his advantage. Though at the same time, I do not believe a villain should ever outright outpower the party. There should always be that little glimmer of hope, or that little enticing element that drives a party to take care of them. For instance, if Tenmon Flint was immortal, like straight out impossible to kill, there would be no drive to fight against him, because we know that there's nothing we can do. Or there is no, or maybe he does look like he's invincible to kill, but he's attacking a town full of people that we care about, and the town is also our home. That's another enticing element. Villains always need one or two enticing elements to them that lures a party into attacking them. Because in Dungeons & Dragons, the system is very much open-ended and very much up to roleplay. Your players will make their decisions, and if you don't have a reason for them to fight, then why should they? This element will play into Edge as well, because you can use whatever enticing element these guys have as an edge up on the party to give you just that much more in-depth to your character and to your villain.
Well, that sounds fairly good, but what about the super villain, like the villain above all villains, like In the Teen Titan realm, it was Slade. Always Slade.
Or eventually it became Trigon, eventually.
Well,
But-
he was, to me, Trigon was like a minor blip. You know, this was an interesting arc here, but they still got rid of Trigon. Whereas
Yeah, you're right. He
Well-
only did last a few sessions, didn't he? Or a few episodes, didn't he, in the Teen Titans?
yeah, there was
You're
like
right.
one episode dedicated to Awakening Raven, and Slade was being a total creeper, and everybody's like, "We're gonna ship this." And then there was like the one episode where Trigon came up, kicked everybody's asses, and then the next episode they get rid of Trigon. Pretty much.
Okay.
Well, there's another thing about that is that when it comes down to supervillains, there's still always that feeling that you can beat them, but they're going to be much more clever. They're going to be much more skilled and have much more edge than other characters. And I
I don't
recommend
think
coming up
that
with
ever
4
really
to 5
happened with
edges.
Slade though. Slade
I
was
Are you
did.
always-
kidding me? Hold on.
Yes, Slade.
I hate
Keep
to
in
say
mind, when you think of Slade is no immortal or impossible to kill being.
Hell,
Slade,
he was immortal. He was a man. He was no better than he was no better than Bruce Wayne, really.
Yeah, but he was scary. he's
He is.
always one of my favorite villains because it didn't matter what they did. He always managed to escape. He always kicked Robin's ass, and he usually had some sort of like triple backup plan that he
Yeah,
could
but-
fall back on when the Teen Titans did manage to do something to make his original plan go to hell.
yeah, and these are all major elements of what I was talking about with Edge. And the major thing that the reason Slade represents a good supervillain is that he is not impossible to kill. When you think of Slade, you think of a man, a really skilled and intelligent man, but a man nonetheless. Someone who is tangible, physical,
Although I guess
touchable,
he
and
did
hurtable.
technically die somewhere along the lines, because
Yeah.
in the Trigon arc, he was,
I think he was
Hell-
killed and had his soul sent to hell, kind of a thing.
yeah.
But
I don't remember
that's
what
a whole
episode-
other. That's a
So,
whole other thing.
well, I can actually bring that into this because the major thing about that is that he's a really good example of a good supervillain for that very reason, because of the fact that the Teen Titans were not facing a force that was outright going to crush them. Because if that was going to happen, well, think of it. They're a party of heroes. They're going to rush to the rescue of the people. If they go straight up there and this person really was that impossible to kill, they'd be dead like that. There always is an element that makes the villain worth fighting. Someone who is not invincible, but at the same time can very well seem it through intelligence, through maybe manipulation of power, through some kind of edge or
Game
key
or technology
exactly.
or some sort, right? Hence why he never really wanted to deal with the supreme superhuman like Starfire, who had insane strength, insane powers, and was just otherwise basically a Superman wannabe, and could do it. or
Superman wannabe with the.
Prepare for all the hate mail with that comment.
I'm sorry. Come on, don't lie. He was picking up cars.
Well, honestly, if you think about it, any like superhero universe that you step into, there are going to be a lot of superheroes that share traits with other superheroes, and then it kind of becomes a pissing contest as to which one's the true hero for this kind of power typeset.
Well, okay. Superman could kick Starfire's ass. That's not what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
What I'm trying to get at is that amongst the Teen Titans, she was by far one of the bigger and badder of them. Though, let's face it, Raven's
It was
arcane magic. But
her.
that's not the point here. The point was
Yeah.
Slade
That was
would
their
never.
distraction.
Slade would never go toe to toe with Starfire. Why? Her fucking powers are extreme. Now, when she
No,
goes for her.
did he go toe with
I
her?
think when she did, he would always have to outmaneuver her and just have to hope that he could make her hit something
he used her
instead.
experience against her a majority of the time.
Yeah. Right, and with Raven, he ain't fucking with Raven. He's gonna use some kind of dark magic, he's gonna use some technology to block her, he's gonna do anything to make sure her magic ain't working. Cyborg? Well, I think he had like a gizmo kid who just like fucking deal with him. I don't want to deal with him. Because he knows for a fact, on toe-to-toe, a lot of the Teen Titans would kick the snot out of him. And we're talking, this is Deathstroke in a kid's form of the Titans. This guy's not a easy motherfucker. He kicks Batman's ass once or twice, and then he receives it.
Yeah.
But for a fact, the Boy Wonder, okay, he can school the Boy Wonder, and the Boy Wonder is the leader of the Titans. Put him down, rest of the Titans go down.
Yeah.
This
they
is
get
manipulation at its finest for a villain.
Yeah.
I had no intention of going this direction, but hey, you are right. This is the best example. Is that he's the best controller.
He is a master manipulator. I don't know how many times Robin would get pissed off because we have Slade. It's another robot getting ready to blow up in your face.
Yeah. Anyway.
Just all the time.
And that just goes in to show that intelligence, wit, power, edge, they can all be used as factors to create a villain who it is truly complicated but not impossible to kill. In my opinion, the best kind of villains to deal with are those who are killable and tangible, but at the same time have such powerful edge that it's not a straight up fight. You have to think about how to do this. You have to think of ways to get to them, because their edge is protecting them and their skill is protecting them.
Oh, cool. Well, I gotta say, another really good one is long-term villains, who you might see their work the whole fucking time you're playing, but though you'll see their work, you won't know it until the very end. Maybe, maybe in a D&D game, we're playing first to 20th level, maybe they've been there the whole time doing shit, and you've never noticed it. If you come, and if you're a smart player, and okay, you come across whoever the big villain is at low levels, maybe this guy is at such a point where he's fucking impossible to fight. But maybe, maybe he beats you. Maybe he just so wholeheartedly beats you down that you don't go after him again. Until later, when you're finally big, strong, when you're finally the big bad, and his schemes are coming unraveled, and he's about to do whatever he's about to do, now you're on equal terms, that's always cool. The big badass in the beginning who will pose a threat. The biggest threat in the beginning, but eventually you learn to defeat him. That's always a cool villain, and I plan on using that one eventually, actually. I had a whole campaign based on that. But, anyway.
Yeah. And this all really plays into a lot of interesting elements.
Because the one thing that I love about a good villain is they're memorable. And that's a topic I don't think we've covered yet. Now, many of these concepts that we have covered are very much they have an edge, yes, but they have to have something that makes them memorable. Why do we hate this person? Why do they do what they do? You need to seriously have a good reason for this, because memorable versus unmemorable, they can really make a D&D campaign. Because if you have a villain that's very memorable...
Any campaign, for that matter. Mutants or Masterminds, World of Darkness, Warhammer 40k, anything, as long as the villain's memorable.
Exactly. If you can really remember this villain, then it's going to stick with you for a long time, and it's going to really show to the campaign and keep your memory of that campaign, and also it'll make sure you have more fun. So this is why memorability is a very important factor. Memorability can be caused through very many actions, such as the actions the villain takes, the information you learn on the villain. That's the hardest one to keep memorable, anyway. You need to really keep... I recommend spending a lot of time on backstory for a villain. Come up with... And keep one major element in mind. This is the one major thing I learned about playing villains.
Mm-hmm.
No
Give
one
them
ever thinks
why.
they're... Well, yeah, the why. And this is the major thing about the why. No one ever thinks they're wrong. You're not going to wake up one day and say, I'm evil, I'm going to do this. No. Evil people think that they are right in what they do. And that's the major thing you need to remember. You need to put yourself in that mindset and say, why am I right? Why am I doing this? Why is this the thing that is better to do than everyone else's plan.
You know, and the only other case where that might not be the case is people like the Joker or people with an alien way of thinking.
Well, actually, even with the Joker, he still thinks he's
Really?
right.
Really?
Yeah,
How does he...
it's-
Really? How?
Because in his mind, he believes that causing chaos is the good thing to do. He doesn't think of himself as evil. He thinks of himself as a clown, or
You know-
just like to have fun.
You know...
And chaos
I
and
can-
anarchy is his fun.
Shape, I think... What do you think on that matter? Because in all honesty, the way they portray him is he's a psychopath. That's just it. He doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit. He's tried to kill himself, but he wants it to be in a glorious way. You bet your sweet ass in the Red Hood Batman movie, he tried to kill himself when the Red Hood tried to kill both Batman and the Joker and himself. He was going for it.
Yeah.
He didn't care. He had no compassion. He wanted to spread a big smile. He wanted people to suffer.
Yes.
For what the fuck ever reason he wants. Because
that's
it's
just
insanity.
Yeah, but that's the charm, though, of a villain like that. Because a lot of
Right.
times it's like, oh, well, you know, what's got your britches in a twist? Why are you doing all this shit?
Right.
Oh, somebody did this great wrong to me, and I'm going to get my revenge. It's like, get over yourself.
Yeah. So,
Lots of people get wrongs
like I
done to
said-
them all the time.
So, like I said, yes, to a degree, you are right. No human in their right mind would ever think, well, I'm doing for the greater good. No one really. Unless you have an alien way of thinking. I can tell you, I have
Still,
two...
there's
I mean,
overzealous people. People who are so convinced that what they're doing is the proper way of doing things. It has to happen. It's for the greater good.
Yeah.
And they believe that what they're doing is for the greater good, and everybody else has to see it their way eventually.
right, you know, it's kind of a thing, like, you know, Illithids from D&D, they're fucking evil. We all acknowledge that these things are the most alien foreign concept to us, and that no real DM can run these things properly as a alien creature because that's just it. It's so far from human. We don't know how to classify it. It's an aberrant. It's an aberration, abomination. It is so far beyond human that, or different from human. We just don't get it. It is the ultimate villain in this sense, in that your understanding of why would it summon something so dark, so evil to destroy everything, and willingly say, yes, I serve the greatest force of evil. I want you all to die. No one would fucking do that in their right mind.
Yeah.
But an aberration, an abomination, why not? There's surely something to it.
Yeah.
Well, even then, they might not think of themselves as the villain. They may think of themselves as personal gain, desire, enjoyment, fun, any sadistic feeling are still positive. And in their mind, it's positive. So
This
to
is
them,
getting very philosophical here.
Right, okay, yeah, let's not get philosophical here. There are cases where some people will blatantly say, I am the bad guy. And I have characters who are like that too. I am evil. I don't care.
Yeah, and then there's others that go, well, yeah, obviously I'm a villain in this role, but I have to be. This was forced upon me.
Silver Surfer being the prime example is that he had no choice. He was saving his people.
Yeah.
But he willingly accepts the fact he is the bad guy, serving Galactus to destroy fucking worlds.
Yes.
Because it's to save his people. But he knows, in his heart of hearts, he will say it, I am the bad guy. But it's for a
He might
greater
hate
purpose.
being the bad guy. He could wish he wasn't the bad guy, but he will accept that he is the bad guy.
Right. And so, this kind of leads me to wrapping up this conversation of, we all know what a good bad guy is. Memorable? Oh, you know what? Hold on, I want to talk about this. Fucking villains who aren't bad guys. You know, I mean, let's face it.
The everyday villain.
Before, well, I think one good example about that I made before the recording messed up again was James. God, I forgot the last name.
Whatever.
Basically, from Peter Parker's Spider-Man.
How
James,
did
Jonah, James Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, James Jonah Jameson.
It's
James Jonah Jameson was one of the major, was one of the points I made last time before the recording messed up, which was Spider-Man Jones Jameson.
J. Jonah Jameson.
Okay.
Jay. We'll just call him Jay.
Jay. Okay, I can do Jay. Okay. So Jay, essentially, one major thing about him, he's not the bad guy. He's never a villain. He's never going out hurting anyone. But he's still a villain. He's not the bad guy,
He's
but he's
an
still a villain.
antagonist. Damn sure.
Because
You know-
he slanders Spider-Man's name and makes his public image harder to deal with, and making it much harder on him.
And for the most part, an image can make the hero. That can pretty much be it. Let's face it, if Superman did all this good shit, but everyone in the world was so convinced that he's responsible for all this, Lex Luthor would win. You know? He'd say, get this alien off our planet, and okay, I'm gone, you know? And then shit would go bad, you know?
Yes.
Then that's entirely a good point. Now, to say J. Jonah Jameson isn't a bad, sleazy person, a sleazy bastard is so fucking wrong, but
He just has some righteous world views that he thinks doesn't need to be altered.
right.
You know, he thinks vigilantes are a bad thing. You know, if there's trouble in town, let
Let the police handle
lawful
it.
police reinforcement type people deal with it.
Right.
Not these people who dress up in fancy wrestling suits.
No kidding. Kick ass.
Yes.
So, you know, other than that, I gotta ask, can we think of bad villains?
Other than the villains that are there purely for like
Comedic value, like the Box Ghost.
Box Ghost. Box Ghost from Danny Phantom. Or pretty much any of the Power Ranger villains. I know
To a degree. There's some who are good. Come on.
Well, yeah, like maybe like in the earlier versions, a
Yeah.
few in the later versions, but definitely in the earlier versions there were some more sound supervillains. But the minions were always hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
They were always messing stuff up.
Yeah, and
Well,
so, other than
one-
minions and or comedic value, it's hard to think of a good villain, isn't it?
Bad villain, you mean?
A good bad villain, yeah, there we go.
A good bad villain. 'Cause
And this is the main.
people remember those villains, and they usually don't make it, so they usually don't last. So people just don't know.
What were you gonna say, Jolts?
Yeah, I was gonna say something like hers. Like, a bad villain is not rememberable, and therefore you may never remember them. Like, for instance, it's really hard to think of a bad villain because you won't remember their name. You may remember what they looked like, or perhaps maybe one time you recall the show. But at the same time, you're not just going to be able to bring them up, and that's because they didn't leave an imprint or an image in your mind. And that's, I mean, they may have been entertaining to fight at the time, and even bad villains you can have fun fighting. But let's be honest, if you're going to deal with someone who's like a peasant wielding a pitchfork and just coming at you and swinging at you,
Or,
you're not ever going to remember who they
that
were.
light bulb guy off of Teen Titans.
Fuck if I remember.
There's like
Another good example.
one episode where Raven was dealing with some mental issues, and she just about like sent his ass to the netherworld.
Oh yeah, I remember that. She had like just been studying arcane out the ass, and all of a sudden she's like at a whole new tier of magic and
Yes.
some shit. Yeah, okay.
And it's like her hate emotion or something is going haywire, and she gets the 4 Raven eyes, and she's like,
Oh yeah.
I'm going to send you into darkness.
And it just starts to kind of show that good villains, you'll remember them always. Bad villains, it's very likely that you're going to have more trouble there. Because it's just simple as that. Either you leave an image or you don't. And keep in mind, you're never going to know who a good or bad villain is at the time. Because even a bad villain you can have fun with. You're just not going to be able to see. You're just not going to be able to remember them later on.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the only type of bad villain I can really think of is the flat XP fodder villains.
Yeah, but those are minions, so.
Yeah, I mean, you could call them minions, but if they were honestly like, "Oh, I'm here to do something," and
I
it's like,
am the great Goblin King! And you know, he's just.
no, get the Goblin King out of this.
Oh, okay. Fine.
It's like at the
One of
end
like
of
50
The
Goblin
Incredibles.
Kings.
I am the what the fuck did he call
I
it?
am Scourge, the great bard!
He's
Huh?
like, I am Mole the Digger. I am beneath you, but none of you are beneath me.
Oh,
Some-
come on, don't make fun of the Incredibles.
No,
come
just the
on.
villain at the end. Just the guy
The
at the end.
Underminer? Come on, he could have had a good story. Come on.
Could have. But
I
at the
re- I
same
remember
time,
him.
I'm like, what?
I think the only bad case of a villain that we can actually think of is my death metal villain I named him. Oh yeah, you bet your sweet ass. He comes up, has a band, and all of a sudden he just plays some fucking Raining Blood or, you know, some Disturbed and shit, and all of a sudden just buildings are falling apart. Shit is breaking. He's created a sound bomb. Oh shit, you know, all of a sudden people are dying. It's a fucking travesty. All of a sudden, Jolt's here, asshole, teleports once within like 2 feet of him, and done. He gets slapped once with the great flaming hellfire greatsword. Like, so are you gonna roll his damage threshold save? No. Why? He's done.
And you know that actually brings up another concept where there are uses for bad villains, and sometimes you actually might want a bad villain in your game. And I know that sounds crazy, guys, but there's a reason why.
Turn him
Bad
into a
villains
good
can
person
help.
later on.
Not even that. It's that bad villains, sometimes if you do them right, where the villain is not memorable, they may bring up some memorable scenes with your characters. Like, I remember that scene most because that was the one moment where Jolt's kind of had this moment in the spotlight. This one moment where he kind of showed off what he was about, and that's where a bad villain shines, making players feel special, making players have those memorable moments with themselves. They can be used to bring out the best in your players sometimes.
Yeah, even if they have like a 20-minute scene and you'll never remember the name again, your character's gonna remember the fight at the very least. Granted, the guy had like a few more scenes and he had a few more like comedy sketches, but I think I turned him into like a reformed villain after that. Just he's kind of like the Tony Stark and he's funding the group of heroes. Like, here's a mansion, yeah. Wait, you're a super villain and you have money? What are you doing? My parents never loved me.
You know, Death Metal, that would have been a legitimate excuse.
Oh, that was his excuse, remember? Just like, all of a sudden he pulls up in like Diablo fucking Ferrari bullshit or something. I can't remember. Whatever. He comes up in like a $10 million car. I'm just like, you're driving that? Like, yeah, Dad got it for my 18th birthday since he missed it. You know?
But
just,
by the
just
way, guys, this is another example by what I meant by unrememberable. I didn't even remember that was his excuse for being evil.
just, I have these powers since I was born, and no one cared for me, so fuck you.
What about a villain that's bad at being bad?
Like, oh god, Powerpuff Girls. I know this is stupid to think about, but the fucking Amoeba Brothers.
Yes!
They're just bad. They're
They're
bad at
just
being
bad
bad.
at being villains.
You know, like, hey, Powerpuff Girls, you want to fight us? Not now. Oh,
Or-
come
or-
on!
Shit, like Dr. Draken from Kim Possible.
Oh, Jesus Christ. His
He
minion
actually-
was a badder.
Like Ron Stoppable made a scary villain
Oh,
than
yeah.
Draken was. He actually had Shigo under his thumb when Ron Stoppable took the place of Dr. Draken. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, but that goes back to comedic relief, so...
Actually, you know, speaking of comedic relief, I have two bad villains myself,
Oh, no.
and no one would ever remember them, but anytime they showed up, they made their memory. They were two gnolls.
I should have killed them. I really should have.
They
Your
were
first
both-
habit to the Knolls, I should have killed them.
They're both brothers, and they just always popped up doing some random scheme to get back at the party. They eventually gave up on killing the party, and they just wanted to get back at them. So what one of them literally did, you know how gnolls have these very awkward shapes. They're hunchback. They kind of have a bit of an awkward shape to them. But one of them tried. One of them basically squeezed and popped their form into a human plate mail, which was very awkwardly and poorly put on, and you can see the fur sticking out, and the guy's tail was barely tucked in, and they were trying to sneak up and pickpocket the party.
They'll never suspect us. Clank, 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 clank.
The whole party spotted these guys instantly and ran them off. I
think I rolled a 4 on the check too. God, it was bad.
It was very hilarious in the way it worked. And then the time before that, when they first met, they got into a fight, and the Knolls actually almost killed them, ironically enough.
Oh yeah, it was a fucking tough fight. Well, it's because a badger kicked their ass initially.
Yep, and the Knolls thought it was completely all on them too. But I think one of the funniest scenes I've ever had with those guys was the scene where they came up with a fake camp, and one of them posed as a traitor. He even wore like a fake mustache, had this hat on, and everything.
Oh god, it was great, but I should have killed them.
And that comes into a concept of comedic villains. This one you especially have to be careful about overstaying, but if you come up with a good concept of a comedic villain and you can find a way to implement them, I recommend it. In situations that become very dark, which can very well happen with larger scale villains, comedic villains just add that livelihood, that hilarity that you can't deny as a party. And when I gotta say, I had the best time playing these Knolls, because they are sort of the GM's way of saying, they're sort of the GM's way of playing, almost like playing with the party, and it's hilarious.
Shit, you know what I need to have a doppelganger who's just like that. That's his whole fucking shtick, is that he silently sneaks up onto the party, and he'll just walk around as one of them for a while and just cause mischief, and just like, as soon as the party catches his ass, he's like, bye, poof. I need to make that a thing now.
I think I actually did that one time.
Oh, did you do that once? I didn't even fucking know.
I did that with the doppelganger once, and the funniest thing about it was that he was disguised as one of them. The guy turns to the left, sees his friend, turns forward, the door opens, grabbing the guy, yanking him in, closes, and the doppelganger just walks up beside him. He looks over, sees the guy again, looks forward, looks to the left again, doppelganger's in his doppelganger form, just like licks his tongue out at them, and slowly steps away from them.
Oh god, that was ridiculous.
And the whole purpose of this was the doppelganger was just distracting the guy long enough for them to pickpocket a key that they needed to open the east door of a a dungeon, in order to get to the map room. And it was the most hilarious thing ever, because it actually worked. The player was too dazed to attack the doppelganger.
Anyway, this is all good. Is there like any, I hate to say, ugly villains? You know, we've covered the good, we've covered bad. What about the ugly?
You mean like villains that are just an utter disgrace to villaindom?
Yeah, like the Powerpuff Girls and Eva Brothers. Well, I think we already covered that one too. So,
No. The Gangrene Gang from Powerpuff Girls?
Yeah, the Amoeba Brothers or whatever, yeah.
Well, no, there's the Amoeba brothers, ha. But then there was also the Gangrene Gang. They gave him a little bit of trouble at first, but afterwards it was like, oh, you're just some town ruffians. We could totally forget about you if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. But I think we covered all the things. Anything we should avoid besides, you know, stuff like overstaying their welcome kind of a thing?
Avoid
Intensive side switching.
Ha! Are you kidding me? That's the best shit. Are you kidding me?
I know, it's like, okay, I can stand maybe up to 8 switches.
Okay, yes.
But when you're like, oh, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, like 20 times, and it's like, just pick a side.
You know, like, that's one of those things, like, I'm all chaos, baby. Fuck you.
As far as avoid opening up avoid opening up cans of worms that you're not ready to deal with. Avoid with a villain. Do not. Villains, yes, they can do a lot, but at the end of the day, remember you're the GM playing them. If you don't think that you're ready to plan for a situation, even if the villain would do it, you need to draw the line somewhere to make sure that you don't put yourself in a position where you're not going to be able to continue. Because,
oh man, I gotta say, shit like
you
that.
can quickly lose control of the story. And I mean, like, not just a little bit, there's always that creativity, but if you go too far, you start to lose a concept on like, things you've said before, because once you start getting crazy with the villain, you really start to lose control, and you just open a can of worms that you need to literally replan and readjust around, which can always be a major...
Yeah, I recall you've had a few issues like that before.
It's a major issue of mine. I recognize it's an issue, but at the same time, to this day, I still have the hugest problem with that.
Also, know your players when it comes down to it. I know that's something not to avoid, but make sure you know what your players are comfortable with. Especially if you're going grimdark, like World of Darkness and shit. You know, because it's dark. That shit's grimdark. You know, if you got people who are afraid about, just for the love of God, don't ever mention like child assault or, you know, vampires feeding on children. If the person is just so uncomfortable with that, try to avoid it. You know, because I mean, I know for a fact, and this isn't a joking matter either, and this isn't a joking matter. I should probably stop. Stop the music here, but I know for a fact I was playing Game of Thrones earlier, and there was a scene where basically one of the females had been, how to say it delicately, basically she was raped, and you know, it was really fucked up. It got so many of the players so pissed off, and and you know, I feel so bad, and you know, it was more or less, it wasn't to get riled emotions. It was because it was the dark world it was in. It was what would happen to a degree, and you know, I talked to the player who happened to it way beforehand. Well, like, if I marry your character off, would that be okay? And she had simply said, no, I'd rather something physical happen to me than that. Like, okay, so if this happened to your character, you know, I won't go into detail, would this be okay? She's like, yes, that would. And so we were totally fine with it, and it went swimmingly, because, man, those fuckers got destroyed! Oh, I hadn't seen so many crits in a long time. Except
the
for
dice gods were just as mad as we were.
Oh, yeah, until, you know, we're talking about Quinn, fucking your character, who's rolling 60s on a game where it's rolling 20s hard enough. Jackass.
Yeah.
When you're
Like-
rolling 60s on a game where rolling 20 on D6s is hard, you're doing something either really well or really wrong as a GM.
Yeah.
And I think I was doing something really wrong.
This is a subject I definitely want to talk about.
But
Like, basically, when it comes down to this kind of stuff, definitely know your limits, because Demiara here knows my limits, and my limits in games are child torture, assault, anything like that, and sexual assault. Those are two major no's to me, and Demi pushed that this session. But me and him are friends, so I'm not going to hold that against him.
that, and we told you like a week ahead of time,
Yeah.
like, this shit's going to happen. She knows, you know, don't unfriend me and block me.
Yeah, he is.
And-
Demi's been my friend for years. He's practically a best friend to me.
And-
So, but you may not have that same courtesy to another player, and because of that, you may lose a player very quickly.
Yeah, and
no one wants to lose a player.
And that said, if you got some pretty chill players who are okay with weird fucking shit like, oh, what do you mean this whole city just got nuked? Yeah, we don't care. You know, yeah, and it's in the villain's best interest to nuke a city, nuke it. Fuck it. You
Yes.
know, and if your players are okay with this shit, and it's something the villain would do and might have to do it. But always know your villain, know your players, and know what to cross, what not to cross, and where a solid in between is. I know this is a gray zone. This is something we probably shouldn't talk about, and we should just leave alone at this point. But anyway, so we covered villains. Just more than anything, ask why. Why is this a villain? Why is he a villain? Why is the villain here? Always ask the why for villains. And unless there's anything else you guys have to add to this, is there?
Nope, that
Nah.
pretty much covers all my thoughts.
Shape?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Well, that said, there's nothing else to speak about. So, may the dice forever be in your favor.